Yo, what up guys, it's Stewart, and today's video is just talking about how writing a book is hard, and writing a sequel is even harder. Just throwing that out there. I figure some of y'all probably need to know that. So to start off, people in general, writers, non-writers, whatever, would automatically assume as long as you're doing something for a while, it will get easier. And in some cases it does, and in some cases it doesn't. You constantly try to work on a particular portion of your writing, whether it's writing emotions, which I know is something I struggle with, as well as, world building, character development, whatever. You focus on that, and that will improve as you write, as well as, you'll get better at it and it'll become easier for you. But there's always going to be something else. And I know a lot of authors they talk about how they focus on a particular section of their writing to try to improve. And as they are writing that and working on it and getting better at it, some of the stuff they used to be good at starts slacking. Not intentionally or anything, it's just how it works. You're more focused on something and you're more likely to let other things just kind of slide. So you gotta kind of be careful of that, and that's one reason why I think you'll never quit learning. There's always more stuff out there, more information you can indulge yourself in. But like I said, writing a book is hard and writing a sequel is harder. I know I hear a lot of people say writing a second book in general is hard because you already kind of got that little bit of anticipation. You feel like you got to live up to what you had done previously, and you want to be able to, do your first book justice with your second book. You don't want it to seem like you're a flop or anything like that. But writing a sequel, these people already know this world and these characters, and there's even more of stress and pressure put on you as in, writing that book, that sequel, whether it's just a duology, a trilogy, a whole series, whatever. Your readers are already kind of, anticipating what's going to happen. They already have in their mind where they think it might go, and just the environment that you've created. And if you veer off too much from that environment or what they've anticipated, that could kind of have some hindrance to you. I'm not saying you should write something that is very predictable and that your readers, whatever they think is going to happen should be what you're writing or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you've set up this world and you've made it a certain way. Keep it that way. Your readers are already expecting that, as well as if there's things you've touched on in the first book but nothing comes of it. They're expecting that is more relevant later. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. I think the term is like Chekhov's gun or whatever. If you place a gun somewhere in the story or it's mentioned, at some point that gun should be relevant. And that's how it should be with any aspect of your writing, whether it's a character, world building, myth, folklore, or whatever within your story. If you mention it to some degree, and it could make the reader think, okay, this is going to be relevant. If it's not in that story, they're anticipating for it to be relevant later on in the series. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. And with that, there are certain things I've noticed. I try to actually outline the next book in the series before I finish the one before it, to kind of help prevent this a little bit. I already knew what the whole arc and the storyline was going to be across the entire series for my METAGORE series, but I don't know all the small details until I actually sit down and outline it. And I try to outline it about halfway through the first draft of the one before it, which is what I kind of done just not too long ago for book 3. I sat down and outlined it. I'm still not completely done with it, but I feel like I'm far enough in the outline and know the majority of the stuff, so it's not really going to hinder too much on what I put in book 2 anymore. But there are times where you might want something included into that sequel and you realize I should have maybe kind of touched on that in the book before. There's always that, you should have put that in and didn't, and now you got to try to put it into the sequel as well, and it might make things seem rushed or it might delay what you're wanting in book 2, maybe possibly until book 3 if you're writing a trilogy or something. I know there's some stuff when I was outlining for book 3 I did, and I wanted it in that particular time, and I was kind of looking at it in the time frame for book 2, and it would actually take place during book 2, which is why I do it, or I outline while I'm still writing the first draft, so it's not too much out of the way. And it's usually for me, anything that I gotta kind of add in is more closer to the end of that book anyways, because just the time frame and how everything works for me. So I haven't really written that part of the book yet, so it's not really affected if I change it or anything like that. But if I had already released book 2 and send it to the printers or whatever, and then start outlining book 3, and I realized that I couldn't really go back and do that because it's out there. I would have to completely pull it and redo it, and somebody's already bought it, and then there'd be other copies with their stuff in it, and that's just not professional at all. I know I've heard some people say that they've done that, and that's just no. Once you send it out, it's done. It's there. You got to live with what you've put out. That's why you need to go through all these revisions and edits and all that stuff beforehand. So besides that, there are other times where you'll write something in the first book, like I was talking about earlier with Chekhov's gun. You'll write something in your book and then not really think about it too much, but when your readers read it, they're like, this, and they're kind of anticipating it. So when you get to the sequel, you might start seeing some reviews or whatever, or hear people talk about that, and you're like, oh, why did I put that in there? Now I feel obligated to actually follow up on that. And in some cases you are. If it's something very minor or whatever, you don't have to. You don't have to do everything, for fan theories or anything like that. But in some cases, you put something in there, you have to follow it like that. You might have been more focused on another aspect of the storytelling and not really paying attention to what you actually wrote. And then once it's out there, you're like, oh, kind of back myself into a corner there. So you got to kind of think about that as well, which also, like I said, makes writing a sequel harder. And something else I've heard a lot of people talk about, I haven't personally had this problem yet, but I know I've heard some people talk about with their sequels, it's hard for them to write a different book with the same characters. Even though it's the same world or whatever, the plot line is usually different. It's somehow tied to the first one, but they have spent so much time with those characters and following that first plot line that when they go sit down to write book 2, they just know those characters too much for what had happened in the first book, and they struggle with actually creating them as a three-dimensional character in forms of being able to incorporate what was happening in book 2 and actually reacting to that plausibly with their personality and stuff like that. So that could be something else that could hinder you while you're writing a sequel, is what these characters are doing for this book, but once you have to switch gears and put them in a different plot scenario or whatever, you have to really dive deeper into those characters to know them even better for them to fit that plot line. And along with that, you have to create new character arcs. Characters always change and develop, as the story goes on. So you need to have a character arc in the first book, and then, comes to a conclusion, and then in the second book, another character arc. There are some cases where the character arc would expand the course of the series, which it should, but at the same time, there should be like a little arc and then even more of an arc for book 2. You don't want it to flatline or, whatever. And a lot of people tried that so hard to get that character arc for the first book, and then the second book, they've already reached kind of like their potential or whatever, and they're just kind of flatlined. So that's something else you kind of got to worry about. And then something I do struggle with is you start writing a series or something, your readers start anticipating that. You release book 1, and then when they finish, they're like, okay, I want to read book 2. You have to try to get those out close to the same time. You don't want it several years in between them, because all that hype you've built with your marketing or whatever for book 1 has kind of died out, and you have to start all over again for book 2. When if you release book 1 and then 2, that hype's kind of shifts from one to the next. For me, I'm not going to be able to release, I know a lot of people try to do a book a month, or a book a year, a book a month, a book a year. I'm not going to be able to do that. I released The Battle for METAGORE back in May, and I doubt that Sovereign Duties is going to be out before May of next year. Maybe at some point next year, maybe. I don't know. It might even be the year after. But I am trying to quicken my process. It took me 4 years to write The Battle for METAGORE. From start to completion, I am trying to cut down the time that it took me to write my first draft in half, and then hopefully time that it takes everything else in half, hopefully. So I'm going to look at 2 years right now, and then for book 3 maybe a little bit faster, and the book 4 a little bit faster that way. But also with trying to get them out close together and not too far apart, you need to do those books in the series. You can't release one book, the first book of a series, and then decide to write a different book, a different series, whatever. I mean, you can, but your readers are going to be wanting that next book, and you release something else, and then they're just going to be like, this isn't what we wanted. They might still buy it and like it or whatever, but they are kind of, still wanting that sequel to your first book, and it could, discredit your trust to your readers and your fans if you just start jumping around between different series because they don't know exactly what book you're writing on. And if you write a book that starts a series and you jump to a different book, and then if you jump to another book and then another book or whatever, and some of those are standalones or parts of series, they're going to begin thinking that you're not ever going to finish that series. So if you release another series or the first book of one, they're not really going to be that interested in, pursuing that, because they don't think you're going to finish it because you've just been skipping around. So you want to continuously work on that same series, which is how I plan on releasing my books. I do kind of jump around when I'm writing because I will write for my METAGORE series, and at times I just get burnt out. I don't really see it as writer's block. I know what I want to write and this and that, but I just get tired of writing for the same people, or just some of the slower stuff. I'm just like, I'm not really feeling it right now. Even though I know what's going to get there, and I know you can trudge through it, whatever. But I have so many different ideas, so I take the opportunity whenever I hit one of those little roadblocks or whatever. Instead of just trudging through it, I will switch gears and work on a side project, which has usually been The Gift of a Child. For Camp NaNoWriMo this month, it's been True Identities, which has been my main focus for camp. I haven't really worked on my METAGORE series for this month, just because of camp. But I will go and switch gears from working on my METAGORE series and work on that side project for the remainder of that day or that writing session or whatever, or maybe even the next couple days. And then after that, I will go back within a couple days and start writing on my METAGORE series again. And I still anticipate on releasing all of my METAGORE series before I release The Gift of a Child. True Identities will be a little differently since I'm releasing it under a different pen name. I don't feel like that will hinder, the whole credibility with the METAGORE series for D.L. Stewart, since I will be releasing True Identities under a different pen name. So some people, won't really connect those two and say, well, why are you releasing this book if you still got this book type ordeal? And because it's two totally different genres, which is why I'm using a pen name. But for any other fantasy or anything else that I release for as D.L. Stewart, I will be waiting until I finish The Battle for METAGORE. And what my thought process is, hopefully by the time I get done with that series, I will have almost completed The Gift of a Child. And I've been kind of thinking about maybe doing a companion novel. So maybe even got started on that, or maybe even possibly completed that as well. And then I can release the last book of the METAGORE series, and then a couple months later, release The Gift of a Child, a couple months later, whatever. Or, something like that. Just kind of have a backstock of books that I've written as a side project, that once I actually release all of my METAGORE series, I can start releasing those, and that way I can release more books faster without actually having to write them that fast, in a sense. And that's a lot of the reasons why I think, and I've heard other people think, that writing a sequel is hard. One tip of advice that I would suggest if you are planning on writing a series or a sequel of any kind is to reread the first book. It doesn't matter how long you spent writing on it. Just take some time away from it, and then after you've taken some time away, before you start on that sequel, reread what you've already written. For book one, just sit down and read it like you would any other book, and dive into that story and those characters and that environment. And that will kind of refresh your brain. It will get you more in tune with your characters, more in tune with the world, and you will realize those things that you had maybe put in the first book that you didn't realize you had put in. So to work on those when you start outlining or just pantsing your second book. That way kind of what was said and what wasn't said, so you know if you need to clarify anything, if you need to actually incorporate something early on into the story so you can actually do whatever you plan on doing later, or whatever. It just gets you re-familiarized with your book and your series, and that will help you a lot. So yeah, that's about it. Like I said, I'm D.L. Stewart. My debut novel, The Battle for METAGORE, is available on all those links down below. You can go check those out on Amazon. It is currently 99 cents for the ebook and $12.99 for the paperback. If you want to go and purchase that, it's only that for the month of July, and it's only that for Amazon. If you go anywhere else, it'd be the normal regular price of $4.99 for ebook and $14.99 for paperback. And that's part of the Rogue Skies book fair that's going on during this month. The link's down below, so go check that out. It's got a bunch of science fiction and fantasy books for discounted prices, as well as some that are free, and you can go click on that link and go there and check out all the books. And at the end, there is a sign up where you can win a free Kindle Oasis and some other cool little prizes or whatever. So you can go check that out. I got Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube. I got a website, blog, newsletter, whatever. All those links are down below. You can go click that out. Go click on that and check it out. Man, I can't talk today. So yeah, that is that. If you haven't, click the like button, dislike, I don't care. Whatever you do you, I do me. Hit the subscribe, ring the bell, so you get notified whenever I upload new videos, which is usually on Mondays, like today. And at times I do bonus videos on Thursdays, or in the rare occasions that I might decide to start doing some live streams, which I did yesterday. You'll get notified on that. I don't know how many of those I will do. I haven't really done that many. I think that's my second live stream that I've actually hosted. The first one was just like a Q&A on my release day, and then that one was actual writing sprint. I don't really want to set a date and time when I'm going to do live streams, because I work at home and my life is still very unpredictable, and things come up at the last minute. I'm very busy, so yeah. But if you do want to write for live writing streams, I do have links down below of a bunch of other author tubers, as well as a schedule finally of a lot of their times and whose channel on what day and all that stuff. Whatever, you can go click on that and you might see my beautiful face there. Not always. Like I said, I have things come up. I know last week I didn't really get to do much. I think I might have done like Monday or Tuesday or something. Yeah, that's about it. Peace out. Everybody love everybody.